Hey TPT sellers, my name is Mike Fichigami and I'm the host of the SEOTpreneur YouTube community. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how your average TPT product rating does not impact your TPT SEO search position ranking. Wait, what? Yeah, crazy, right? I just said that having a 5-star average rating and having a 4.8 star rating and having a 4.6 average star rating doesn't impact where you show up in search. Now, this is going to be a controversial TPT SEO idea. I know some of you right away are already disagreeing with me because we've heard so often in TPT land that you need to have a lot of positive ratings, and it's unfair because the TPT sellers who started 10 years ago, who've been working so hard, they've amassed an incredible bank of 5-star ratings that we just can't compete with. Sometimes we wonder, maybe the way that you get ratings was different back in the day. It used to be out of 4, and then they converted it to out of 5. And so maybe it was easier to get 4-star ratings than 5-star ratings. And so maybe now it's just harder to get 5-star ratings. And that's unfair, right? Or so we think. But what if our average TPT product rating doesn't actually impact where we show up in the search results? That's what we're going to explore in today's episode. And the challenge is for you to prove me wrong. I'm going to be arguing that 5-star product ratings do not matter from a technical perspective. What I mean is having a 5-star product rating does not impact your search position and help you get to the top of page 1. I'm also going to suggest in this episode that you only need a 3-star average product rating to show up in search results. Now, I'm not talking about the number of reviews. The number of reviews is important, not because of the number of reviews, but because of what it represents. Number of reviews is a proxy for number of sales. We don't know how many sales a resource has, but we can guess that resources that have lots of reviews have probably sold 10 or 20 or 50 times more than what's actually there for reviews. If we assume that 10% of people leave a review, which is very generous, that means that if you have 10 reviews, 100 people have bought your resource. The number of people who buy your resource is probably more important than the number of people who come back and leave reviews. So I'm not talking about the number of reviews that you have. And I'm also not talking about the content of the review. So for those of you who watched the Sunday series, in episode 6, I talked about this TPT search algorithm ranking factor called attributes. We know from the manual that TPT can define certain attributes as indexed and searchable to the TPT SEO algorithm. An attribute is basically anything where a user enters data. So it could be your title, it could be your product description, but we also enter information into a string called our comment. So in theory, the content of our reviews could be searched by the algorithm. And that makes sense because teacher buyers will talk about how they use the resource. Oh, I used it for morning bell work. And now maybe your resource should rank a little bit higher because of bell work. Go check out episode number 6. I'll put a link in the top and you can learn more about searchable attributes in TPT SEO. I'm not talking about the content of our review in this episode. I'm also not talking about the act of leaving a review. So when a teacher buyer leaves a review, that might be a conversion event that is a signal to TPT SEO. And if you watched last week's Sunday episode, we talked about this dynamic re-ranking factor that is in play on TPT SEO. So basically, over the past 8-9 weeks, every Sunday we've been looking at a different rule that TPT uses to figure out if your product is relevant to what the teacher is searching for. In episode 8, we talked about business metrics. In episode 9 last week, we talked about how it looks like no matter what the ranks are based on the past 8 rules, the 9th rule is to dynamically resort the top 20 results or the top 100 results based on how attractive your resource is. And attractiveness is based on whether you got 20 clicks in that search result. So someone's searching for a specific term and your resource got 20 clicks by people, or 2 conversion events. And all of this is within a rolling period of the last 30 days. If this is new information for you, definitely check out episode 9. I'll put a link at the top because I'll walk you through how that dynamic re-ranking happens. That means for the top 20 or the top 100 results, all of the rules get thrown out and you get sorted or reshuffled based on how attractive you are according to the last month of data. So I'm not talking about the act of leaving a comment, because leaving a comment on a resource could be seen as a conversion event, and maybe that gives your product a boost. In this episode, I'm also not talking about the sales psychology of having good reviews or the sales psychology of having bad reviews. We know from shopping on Amazon ourselves that when we look at a resource that's maybe really affordable and cheap because it's mass produced in a country where the economics favor that kind of resource, you might be thinking, oh, I bought resources from this place and sometimes they're great and sometimes they're horrible. So we look at the reviews for feedback. And if the reviews are bad, then maybe we're a little suspicious. And if the reviews are too good, then maybe we're a little bit suspicious. And so there's this sweet spot where there are positive reviews, but there are also some legitimate criticisms. And we think, okay, I'm going to take a gamble on that. Reviews are social proof. And that definitely impacts whether or not we buy. But I'm not talking about the social proof aspect in today's conversation. I'm talking about the average number of stars that your product resource has from an algorithm perspective. Algorithm is just a fancy word that means formula. The TPT search algorithm is basically a formula that considers a bunch of factors and it spits out a number. And based on this number, it sorts where we show up. And this happens after the first 7 rules in TPT search, which is basically a tie-breaking algorithm, and it puts us into buckets. Do we have any typos? Yes or no. If your resource has no typos in the search term that the teacher buyer is looking for, then you go to the front bucket. If you have a typo or a spelling mistake, or you have a variation of the word because it's spelled differently or because it's a verb conjugated differently, then you have 1 or 2 or 3 typos and you're put into a different group. And so there's a series of tie-breaking formulas that get us from rule 1 to rule 7 until we hit rule 8, which is this business custom metrics formula. And at the end, you need to be able to sort it by a TPT SEO rank that each product has. So I'm talking about this search formula. I'm going to argue that the formula doesn't even consider your average product rating to figure out the sorting order of where you show up on the TPT search result page. So what I'm asking you to prove me wrong is this sentence. Having a 5-star product rating does not impact your search ranking results. You only need a 3-star average rating to be able to show up in TPT search. I'm going to propose that as long as your product has an average 3-star rating, you'll show up in TPT search somewhere. And if you have below a 3-star rating, then you won't show up. Prove me wrong. One way to prove me wrong is if you go to the TPT SEO Facebook group that we have, there's a post that looks like this, and I'm giving away a $100 gift card, not for proving me wrong, but for people who play this SEO game that I made. And basically the way to prove me wrong is look at your data using this SEO game. And if your data shows your 20 bestsellers and it clearly shows that your first bestsellers have the highest ratings and then your 20th bestseller has the lowest rating, and you can see this gradual descent, that's definitely proof that this theory is wrong. Please leave a message in the Facebook group. The other way to prove me wrong as you watch this video and then you start to think about your own lived experience with TPT search is, can you find a TPT product, either yours or someone else's, where the average product rating is below 3 stars, but you still show up in a TPT search? I wasn't able to find that in my experiments. So if you're able to find a search term where a product has 2.5-star results on page 1 or page 10, that I would be very interested in learning about. So then please leave a comment either here in YouTube or leave a comment in the TPT SEO and Data Secrets by SEOTpreneur Facebook group. We have 130 members already. It's a work in progress. Who knows what that forum will become, but I'm a big fan of launching at 80% perfect, which is good enough, and then figuring things out along the way. So if you'd like to help shape this Facebook community, come on over and be part of that founding group. The biggest issue that we have to answer first is whether it's going to be a public group or a private group. There's more information on the Facebook group. Go check it out. This episode is for TPT sellers who are tadpoles, hamsters, or hawks. If you're brand new to the channel, check out the video in the top corner. It's a free business course explaining the whole TPT journey from beginning to end. TPT tadpoles who are still trying to figure out what their product niche is going to be. This episode's still relevant because sometimes the things we hear in TPT land, like you've got to have 5-star ratings, or I can't get people to leave reviews. Maybe getting people to leave reviews isn't actually a deal breaker. And maybe there are other more important things for you to focus on. Likewise, if you're a TPT hamster and you're a TPT hawk, we're trying to optimize our resources to get seen by more eyeballs, because you can have the greatest product in the world, if people don't know about your resource, they can't buy it. So I believe at this point that being a successful seller on TPT is largely about how well you can do TPT sales and TPT marketing. This is with the assumption that you have a great product. You can have a horrible product, but great TPT sales skills. Eventually, that horrible product will get negative reviews because it's horrible. And those negative reviews, I believe, if you drop past that 3-star, it'll just take you out of the running. But I think TPT sellers, maybe we're too focused on, oh, I don't have enough reviews. Well, why do you need reviews? Do reviews actually matter? Yes, for all the things I talked about earlier with social proof and attractiveness scores. But in terms of ranking, I'm not sure that the actual average rating matters. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what the developer manual says in terms of ranking based on reviews. And then we're going to do a deep dive into the actual TPT marketplace to look at some data, because as you know, we have the developer manual for TPT search, but we don't know how they're implementing the recipes. We can only learn about what's cooking in the TPT kitchen by sharing our lived experiences of what we observe in TPT search. TPT search is constantly changing. That's part of the game, but that's part of life too. Life is constantly changing. And so then TPT becomes a good opportunity for us to learn self-management and self-awareness skills, because here we have something that matters to us, our TPT stores, and how do we deal with change, like a changing algorithm. The last thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to summarize what we've learned about in today's episode with some key TPT SEO takeaways. So we have the developer manual. TPT search is based on a company called Algolia. And we know from the search manual that TPT has 8 ranking criteria. The first 7 are based on relevance. In episode 1, we talked about typos. In episode 2, we talked about geolocation if it's applicable. It's not. In episode 3, we talked about how words matter in terms of search. In episode 4, we talked about filters and how that can influence our search. In episode 5, we talked about the proximity of words in the search term. In episode 6, we talked about the attributes and how your product attributes will influence your ability to show up in search. In episode 7, we talked about exact match, and that doesn't mean what you think it means, so check out episode 7. And finally, in episode number 8, we talked about how business metrics like units sold, conversion rate, total earnings, number of reviews, those are all business numbers associated with your product. In this custom rule, in number 8, TPT can use their numbers to sort their results. Now, we know that TPT can set up these custom rules. We just don't know what specific rules they are setting up. If you worked on the TPT search engineering team or the TPT search data team, then this is what you would see. This is what the Algolia dashboard looks like. It's an example from the Algolia developer manual, which is publicly accessible. We can see here the rules that are applied to figure out the search engine results. This is the TPT SEO algorithm. It has this textual ranking criteria, and then it has some custom ranking rules. And the last custom ranking rule is something that's going to sort these things. In this example, they have number of likes in descending order. This might be something like a movie directory where it's sorting the most popular movies in descending orders based on people's ratings. What we don't know is if TPT has as its final ranking rule product ratings in descending order. They could. It's technically possible for them to do this. But just because TPT could sort the results at the end based on product rating, it doesn't mean that they are. And that's the fun part of the game. They're basically trying to come up with a search engine that comes up with the best results for teachers who are searching for stuff. Because if teachers come to TPT directly and they type in a search term and they can't find what they're looking for, they bounce away and go to Google. And that's a lost sale for the platform, and it's a lost sale for you and me. So it's in TPT's best interest, and they constantly do A/B testing to figure out what's the best formula that gets people staying on Teachers Pay Teachers and successfully finding a product that they purchase. That's the game that they're playing. And the game that you and I are playing as TPT sellers is to understand what the rules are, because if we understand the rules, we can optimize our chances to perform better. It's kind of like as a teacher, if I give out a rubric for an assignment to my students, I'm giving my students the best chance to do well and get a great mark on their assignment. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to get 100% on an assignment, but if they understand how the game is played, then they get to improve their learning and improve their output. They get to demonstrate what they understand. And of course, just because you have the rubric, it doesn't necessarily mean that's how the teacher's marking, because as you and I know, teachers have lots of professional judgment. And so it's not always written on the rubric what we are looking for. And likewise, in TPT SEO land, we might have the developer manual and have ideas about what could be on this rubric. But at the end of the day, we're not grading the papers. The TPT search algorithm is grading the papers and coming up with this SEO rank to sort our resources by. So I don't think TPT is sorting our resources at the end based on our ratings. And I'll show some data in the next section. The other thing we can learn from the manual is that TPT can boost or bury specific product categories or specific product items. And if we go to the TPT manual and look at relevance, it says the engine applies the relevance strategies in the following order. First, it looks at the first 7 rules for textual ranking criteria. So typo, geography, location, number of words, etc., etc. Then it looks at that 8th rule, which is business relevance, that custom rating based on our metrics. And by metrics, could be number of reviews, could be number of units sold, could be number of product previews, those metrics that we know about in the product statistics, but also some metrics that TPT has, but they're not reporting to us. The next relevance strategy is personalization if they've enabled it. We know that the TPT personalization experiment is off, but there's a whole chapter in the Algolia manual that talks about how it can find related products. So there are ways that TPT can turn on personalization without having personalized search. You might also like these resources kind of stuff is personalization. After it does the first 8 rules of Algolia and then does personalization if it's turned on, it says here it can boost and vary product categories using rules. And then it does that dynamic re-ranking stuff we talked about last week. And then finally, before it displays the search engine results page to the teacher buyer, it can promote and hide specific products using these custom rules again. Let's see what the manual says about hiding results with rules. Sometimes you may want to use a rule to hide records based on what users are searching for. And they give the example of a user searching on an e-commerce site for cheap laptops. Without a rule, cheap and premium laptops will appear in the search results. But with a rule, they can set up a consequence where they hide items where the product range attribute is premium. So in our case, it's easy to imagine they could hide products where the average product rating is a certain level. Users searching for cheap laptops will only see the more affordable options in the search results. And likewise, in TPT land, users searching for products, good products, which is everyone, will only see good products. They won't see poorly rated products in the search results. So that's one of the possible reasons why TPT might want to hide results using these rules. From their end, all they have to do is in the settings, they just click on hide items, and then they have to decide, okay, hide by attribute, and attributes could be number of ratings. It could be average product rating, right? So those are attributes, and they enter in the name of the attribute. So they might enter, okay, let's hide based on average product rating. And then they enter the value they want to hide. And so they could say hide products that are lower than 2 stars or hide products that have an average rating lower than 3 stars. And then they click apply. So technically it's possible. One of the experiments I did was trying to figure out if TPT is hiding results with certain product ratings. Have you learned something new in today's episode so far? If you have, can you please hit like right now? It doesn't cost you anything to like the video, but I see the number of likes, and that's a little bit of encouragement for me to keep on going with this Sunday series. Not everyone is comfortable leaving a comment, although those of you who have, I appreciate the feedback, but sending a like is like a little high five or a pat on the back. Good job, Mike. And it lets me know that you're interested in this Sunday series, and I should keep on digging into the manual to see what we can learn as a community. So if you learned something new so far, please hit like in the video, and I'll make another video next Sunday. All right, let's take a deep dive into some actual TPT data to see if we can figure out what TPT is doing. Just because we have the manual doesn't mean we know what decisions or direction TPT is actually heading in. So the first question I asked was, do ratings change based on the search result position? And if that was the case, then we would expect to see something like this, where on the left-hand side, we have the first result at the top of page 1. And then if we keep on going, the last result would have the worst ratings. So we would expect 5-star ratings to be at the very beginning, and then progressively, then we would see 4-star ratings. And then as we kept on flipping through the pages in search, we'd see 3-star ratings. And then as we got to the end of the search listings, we would see 2-star ratings. The second question is, what is the lowest average product rating that shows up in TPT search? Although technically TPT can block certain products from showing up in search, it doesn't mean that they are. But if they were blocking everything below 3 stars and below, it means we would only see 5-star resources and 4-star resources showing up in TPT search. The question is, what's the lowest product rating that we can find in the search results? To answer this question, I used a modified version of the TPT product keyword tracking tool that's available in the TPT seller store. If I go to TPT and search up TPT seller, if I scroll down, there's the TPT seller ultimate bundle. And in the ultimate bundle, it is resource number 10, TPT seller tip number 10. And this is the start of my science experiment. So if you download this tool today, I recently updated so I can click on this plus sign beside the number 8, and it shows us the average ratings of the 24 resources on page 1. It shows the highest rating and the lowest rating. And we can look for patterns here for any keywords. Now, in the version I'm going to show today, I've modified it. So instead of just pulling up the top 10 pages, it's pulling up the top 42 pages for TPT search. This is just a research version. In the regular version, it only loads up the first 10 pages. And you'll know from watching previous videos that Google Sheets intentionally slows down the calls to the internet so it doesn't overload resources. And while it can load 42 pages, from your perspective, you don't want to load 42 pages of data because then you can do only one search per hour. If there's no search term, then that's the equivalent of me going to TPT search and just clicking this green search button with no search term at all. We get a glimpse at the way the search index is actually ranking them based on this invisible TPT SEO score. Because there's no search term, all of the products are relevant. So it passes through the first 7 rules of Algolia, and then it gets to that 8th rule, which is their custom business metrics. So I know that this top resource is by Tara West. It has an average rating of 4.9 with 5.9 thousand reviews. And if I look in the Google Sheet, I can see here it is, Science of Readings by Tara West with an average rating of 4.92 and around 5.9 thousand reviews. So I feel confident that the data is loading in correctly. This is a graph of the first 10 resources. The first resource has an average of around 4.9 reviews. The second resource has an average around 4.8 reviews. The third resource has somewhere between, 4.86 reviews. That's the 4th resource, the 5th resource, the 6th resource, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th resources. So in all these graphs, the product rank is showing at the bottom with the best resource on the left and the worst resource on the right-hand side. And then vertically, we have the product rating showing the number of stars. And there isn't really a clear pattern from here. Google lets us add a trend line. And at first glance, this trend line looks like it's sloping down a little bit. It's not statistically significant by any means. And if I was to zoom out, because this is zoomed into 5.0 star ratings to 4.7 star ratings. If I zoom out so that we can see from products with 1-star ratings and products with 5-star ratings, for these top 10 resources, there's no trend. But we're also looking at the top 10 out of 9.9 million results. So you wouldn't expect to see a negative sloping trend in the first 10 results. Well, what if we look at the first 100 results? Here are the first 100 results zoomed in, and we don't see a pattern. The 39th resource here has an average rating of 4.97, but the very first resource has an average rating of 4.92. We don't see a hard rule where like the best resources are 5.0, 5.0, 5.0, 5.0. 4.9, 4.9, 4.9. We don't see that kind of pattern in the top 100. And if I zoom out so we can see all of the star ratings from 1 to 5, again, there's no pattern. This trending line is straight across. But again, we're only looking at the top 100 resources. Well, what if we look at the top 1,000 resources? So here are the product ranks for the first 1,000 resources. Again, the best resource at the top of number 1, that Tara West resource, will show up on the left-hand side. And then the worst resource, which is position number 1,000, will show up on the right-hand side. At the top here, we have 5-star, and then 4.8 stars, and then 4.6 stars for the average rating. But you can see it's like all over the place. It's not a clear, discernible negative sloping line. And if I zoom out to see everything, One thing that I do notice is there's this outlier here that has a rating of 4.61, and that is a little bit further behind. But overall, this is a pretty horizontal line. It's not sloping down, but again, we're looking at the top 1,000 resources out of 9.9 million resources. So at this scale, it's just going to be a horizontal line. Of course it is. So I did the same experiment looking at a search term that would have way fewer results in TPT. I looked up Summer Olympics 2024. In TPT, if I type up summer, right away, Summer Olympics 2024 is auto-suggested as a very popular trending keyword right now. And when I click on that, I can see there's only 1,000 results for Summer Olympics 2024. So this is what I would call a niche unicorn because it has higher search traffic and lower competition. But then the question, and I know some of you are already shouting out at me, yeah, there's no competition because this is intellectual property infringement. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just entertainment. Obviously, consult a lawyer for your specific situation. But word on the street is that Olympics is a trademarked term. I guess it's owned by the International Olympic Committee. I'm just guessing there. But apparently Olympics is a trademark term. So every now and then, whoever owns the trademark for Olympics goes to TPT and it basically does an infringement claim. And then TPT takes down all the resources that have Olympics. Now that's second, third hand information. I haven't witnessed that myself, but it makes sense to me because Olympics would be an easy to create resource topic, but there's only 1,000 results out of 10 million resources on TPT. Well, that's really small. It's not like teachers haven't thought about the Olympics before. So why is it so low? Well, it's presumably low because some outside force, like the trademark owner, is actively protecting their brand. But for the purpose of our data experiment, this is perfect because there's only 1,000 results. And TPT search results, whenever you type in a search term into TPT search, they only show the first 1,000 results. You can only get up to page 42. So if I scroll to the bottom and I click on page 5, I'm going to type up here where it says page 5. I'm just going to type page 40 just so I can jump to the end. Oh, now there's 1,138 results. But if I go to page 42, it just says 985 out of 1,000 plus results. And the option to click page 43 doesn't even show up. And in fact, if I try to go to page 43 in the search terms by typing it into the URL, it'll just say, oh, we couldn't find any results. And that's because Algolia only returns the first 1,000 results. So this is perfect for us to analyze. If we zoom in to the first 10 results for Summer Olympics 2024, the first resource has a rating of 4.82. The second resource has a rating of 4.94. The third one has a rating of 4.83. The fourth one has a rating of 4.8, 4.82, 4.94. And if I go to the first page, 4.8 is the first result and 4.9 is the second result. So it looks like the data is loading correctly. And in this zoomed up level, yeah, it looks like there could be a negative line. That line, by the way, has a very low R-squared number. Statistically, it's not very viable. But in terms of a picture, here we have a negative slope. But that's also because I'm zoomed in here in the vertical scale showing 5-star resources all the way to 4.6-star resources. If I zoom out and show us here are the product ratings from 1 to 5 up there, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a negatively sloped line, but again, we're only looking at the first 10 results out of 1,000. We need a bigger picture. So here are the first 100 results in TPT search. You can see from the scatter plot of these ratings that, yeah, there's a whole bunch of resources that have 5-star ratings that are at the tail end of this search. And we would expect these 5-star ratings all to be at the front if the TPT search algorithm actually was rating it in descending order by our average product rating. But we don't see that. On the flip side, we also see this resource that has a rating of 3.75, and that seems to be further out. But the fact that you can have 5-star rating resources after a resource that has a rating of 3.75, the math just doesn't add up. Okay, well, let's look at the whole range of products because there's only 1,000 products on TPT with this search term, so we can see the entire picture. Here's a zoomed in view of the product ratings for the first 1,000 resources, so all of the products that have Summer Olympics 2024. And I can see throughout here, there's a whole bunch of 5-star rating resources at the beginning and at the end. And so if it really was sorting it in descending order by product rating, you wouldn't really see 5-star rating resources at the end of the product search results. And if I zoom out to show the full product rating from 1 to 5 stars, I noticed something interesting, which is the lowest products, there are 3 of them, 1, 2, 3, they all have 3 ratings, but there are no products below that. And so then I start wondering, is it possible to have 1,000 products and no one left a 2-star review? Maybe, maybe not. But 3 does seem like a number in the middle of the road. I could see developers thinking, we'll just hide resources below the number 3. Clearly, they're not hiding resources below the number 4 because then maybe that looks too fake. Like you can't have all of your resources above 4. But what I'm curious about, and leave a comment if you've ever seen a resource that has a 2-star rating show up in TPT search. I'd be very curious about that. If I go to this horizontal trending line, I can see that the R-squared value is 0.01. That's just a statistics number. It's been a while since I've done this, so correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, if that R-squared rating fits the data perfectly, it'll be 1. And if it doesn't fit the data at all, it'll be 0. The closer you are to 1, the better that line of fit is. The closer you are to 0, the worse it is. So basically that line, there could be a whole bunch of different variations, but it's not really a good representation of this. And that line is pretty horizontal. We would expect, remember, if the product rating was a factor in the formula so that the best product rating shows up at the front of search results and the worst product rating shows up at the end, we would see this negative line showing up in the data. And when we look at it for Summer Olympics 2024, where we can see all the products, we don't see that pattern. But I do see this cutoff line potentially where there are resources that are 3 stars, but not worse than 3 stars, which makes me wonder, have they hard-coded TPT search so that it won't show results below 3? Have you learned something new? If you have, can you please share this video? My goal is to raise the bar in terms of how we think about TPT and our stores and TPT SEO. I believe a rising tide lifts all boats in the harbor. I think there's a lot of misinformation and confusion around TPT SEO. Data is tricky. We don't really understand how TPT SEO works, and we tend to be afraid of things we don't understand. And then we listen to people who have a loud voice, or the voice of experience, or people who've been around for a while, or there are these ideas that propagate and just get repeated so often that they become truths. Like you need 50 products in your store to sell, or you need to use clip art in order to sell. And while there are definitely examples of that where that is true, that's not a hard and fast rule. You don't need 300 resources before you can make a decision about your statistics, but that's one place to start. So part of my goal in this series is to help teachers realize that, yep, this is a formula. Let's try to understand what we can. If our products don't do well with the formula, it's not personal. It's just an opportunity for us to pivot or try to figure out, okay, well, my products aren't doing well probably because of this or because of that. And if I fix this or I fix that, then maybe my products will do better in search. If you're brand new to the channel, or even if you're not, if you haven't done this kind of simple analysis yet, go search up TPT Seller, scroll down and find the Ultimate Bundle. There I am. And when you go to the Ultimate Bundle, the very first resource is free. It's TPT Seller tip number 1. Download this free resource because it shows you in color what to fix on your TPT store. If the sold rate is red, fix this. If the product preview rate is red, fix that. If your page view number is red, fix that. And so by thinking about how the search algorithm works, instead of thinking about it as a magical beast like the sorting hat in Harry Potter, randomly deciding where your product shows up, if we think about it as something that we can control or observe or understand, then it might help us to realize that, you know what, it's not personal. And maybe there are specific things that I can do to fix my products and to increase conversion rates. Instead of saying, oh, the TPT search algorithm changed, and that's why my products are doing poorly. Well, yes, that's true. The TPT search algorithm will always change. And then as it changes, let's figure out what the new rules of the game have become, and then figure out how to pivot to deal with that. If you've learned something new, please share this video in the TPT forum, in your Facebook groups. Let's start talking about what we can do to improve our TPT products. Let's sum it up. let's look at some TPT SEO takeaways from today's lesson. The first key idea is, although it's technically possible for the search algorithm to sort our results by the average product rating, the search algorithm does not sort the results by average product rating. The second thing is, it's technically possible for the search algorithm to hide results with specific average product rating. It does seem to be hiding results that have an average product rating below 3. Now, I'm not 100% sure of that. Go sign up for the SEOTpreneur email community. If I go to SEOTpreneur.com and if I click on email, here's the sign up form. I'm going to post out an email with a $10 TPT gift card bounty to people who reply to my email newsletter with an example of a TPT search term that does include products below 3 stars. You have to reply to the email newsletter that I send out to be eligible for this. So hopefully you sign up before I send that email so you can participate in this game. The bottom line is, although 5-star reviews may not impact us from a technical algorithm perspective, they are still important in the big game. 5-star reviews are important because they're social proof. I know from listening to Influence by Robert Cialdini that when people don't know what to do, they look for social cues from others to help them decide what to do. So if someone lands on your product and they're not sure if they should buy it, they're looking at the other reviews to see what other people did. And that's why it's so important to put 5-star reviews in your product description so it's easier to see that social proof. So yeah, 5-star reviews are still important because of social proof. They're important from that sales psychology perspective. Being successful on TPT isn't just about the technical stuff about TPT SEO and ranking higher in the search results, although that's important. You can rank in the #1 position, but if your product is not attractive in terms of the covers or the product snippet or the reviews, then from a sales psychology perspective, there's no reason to stop the scroll and click on your product. So 5-star reviews are still important from a sales psychology perspective. We don't know for sure yet, but it seems possible that leaving a review could be a vote of confidence in your product to the search algorithm. So the act of leaving a review might be a conversion event, and that conversion event might boost your TPT product in the rankings. Now, I suspect there might be a store halo effect where if you do well in one product, you get a little bit of a temporary boost in all of your products. So in a future episode, I'll talk about how that's technically possible. We'll just have to decide as a community if that's actually what we see happening. But the bottom line is maybe we don't need to stress out about trying to get reviews. Oh no, I don't have reviews. Okay. Well, why is that a bad thing? Because then my products won't rank as highly on TPT search. Well, are you sure? Because I gave 2 examples where it doesn't look like there's a negative relation where your 5-star resources are at the front of the product lineup and your 3-star resources are all at the end of your product lineup on the search result pages. So maybe we don't need to focus on getting reviews. Maybe we need to focus on creating awesome products and communicating the awesomeness well to teacher buyers. If you want a $100 TPT gift card, either for yourself to buy clip art or fonts, or to give away to your teacher communities by chopping it into $10 gift cards, go check out the Facebook group. There's a free TPT SEO game that you can play by submitting your results. That's an entry into winning a $100 TPT gift card. There's an advanced version of the game that lets you look at your product statistics for your best sellers based on the last week of data instead of the lifetime of the data. And that's a game changer. But play either the advanced game or the basic game, take a screenshot of your game card, post it on Facebook, and you'll have a chance to win that $100 TPT gift card. Terms and conditions apply. There's more information on the Facebook group, and the contest ends August 31st, 2024. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new, please subscribe to the channel because we're talking about things on TPT land that no one else is talking about in public. And I believe through public discourse, we can help make our communities better. So if you like that idea and you like learning about TPT secret tips, hit subscribe. If you've already subscribed to the channel, turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on the good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.